There must have been music when Ram walked into the hall of the bow that morning because there was always music when the suitors came. The great boom of drums, the baying of the long trumpets, slender flute notes drawn out like silver wire. I didn't notice them. Strings of marigold must have stretched from pillar to alabaster pillar, auspicious yellows and oranges, as was the custom. I didn't see them. Deafening cheers by the crowd because the citizens of Mithila were always welcomed at these events and they always came. I heard nothing. Which sari had my mother dressed me in that morning? Which jewels had she twined in my hair? Which ornaments had she fastened with loving anxiety around my neck, my waist? I didn't notice. I only saw Ram's face, those lotus petal eyes. I thought I saw him smile. Perhaps time too was caught as I was in the dazzle of that smile. The next events seemed to occur within the slow glide of a dream. Ram picked up the bow and, leaning into it, pressed its lower edge down with his foot until it bent. Did he conquer it with his strength? That strength which he had destroyed hosts of Rakshasas? Or did the bow aid him, turning light as a twig in his hands as it had in mine? Was this the man it had been waiting for? His arm moved in a sinewy arc as he looped the string over the other edge, and thus the Haradhanu was strung. How effortless it seemed! A cry of astonishment rose up from the viewers, and then a roar of applause. I smiled and stepped forward with the victory garland in my hands and my heart beating a rapid rhythm of joy. But Ram was not done. There was an absorbed look on his face as though his thoughts were far away. He tightened the string further until the bow creaked in protest. Ram continued pulling at the string. A great groaning came from the bow. Suddenly, there was an explosion of sparks blinding us. By the time I could see again, the bow was on the floor, shattered into innumerable pieces. I was so shocked I almost dropped the garland. The applause in the hall died abruptly, replaced by consternation. The willful destruction of a sacred object was an act of blasphemy. The consequences would surely be dire. I looked at my bow, its broken body strewn all over the floor, and a great sorrow welled up in me. Why would Ram indulge in such a wanton deed? I wanted to kneel and gather the pieces and hold them close to my heart in a last embrace. I wanted to say goodbye and thank you and sorry as well. But just as I gestured to an attendant to take the garland from me, a shard of light sped from the fragments like a comet reversed and disappeared through the ceiling. I thought I heard music, high and unearthly, a melody at once of farewell and joy. Hearing it, my sorrow fell away. When later I mentioned this to Urmila, she said, "You're always imagining things." "What have you done, Ram?" My father cried aghast. "You have broken Shiva's sacred bow." The stern abstraction was gone from Ram's face, and he looked young and confused, so that I wanted to protect him. "I can't explain it," he said, "but I knew it had to be done. This happens to me sometimes. It is as though some inner voice guides me." I thought this fascinating, but I could see that my father was troubled at the thought of a son in law who acted according to the dictates of his voice, audible only to him. Would his daughter be safe with such a man? I wanted to tell him that I would be fine. The bow had explained to me already that Ram was not like ordinary men. Naturally, his behavior wouldn't be ordinary. I accepted that. After all, I was not completely ordinary myself. I did wonder, though, at what other times had Ram been similarly guided. Now it was time for the exchange of garlands, which would betroth us until the wedding could take place. My father called me forward. My breath came fast as I raised my garland, Jaji and Madhavi, while Urmila held up a second one made of scented champak, one of my favorite flowers for Ram to place around my neck. I smiled at my husband to be with a shy and tremulous love. But Ram wouldn't meet my eyes, nor would he take the garland Urmila held out to him. He turned instead to my father. "I can't proceed any further without the permission and blessings of my father," he said. "It wouldn't be right. King Dasrath sent me with sage Vishwamitra to destroy the Rakshasas that were obstructing his holy rituals. He knows nothing of our journey to Mithila or of the events that have occurred since." I lowered my arms, my face burning. Ram's tone was respectful. I couldn't fault what he said. Still, I felt rejected and ashamed of my eagerness. Anxious too. What if King Dashratha didn't agree to this marriage? He was a more powerful and important monarch than my father. Perhaps he would deem this alliance unsuitable. What then would be my fate? And suddenly I was angry. Filial duty was important to Ram. Good. But what of his duty towards me? My father looked concerned, his eyes clouding. But he spoke calmly. You are right to want your father's blessing. I will send a messenger to King Dashrath at once. We are well acquainted, having fought side by side at the Battle of Vijayant. I am sanguine that he will agree to this alliance. Vishwamitra, who had stood silently in a corner watching the unfolding drama with his hooded eyes, came forward now. I will go myself, he said. King Janak, begin the wedding preparations. I pledge that I will bring Dashrath back with me. This marriage must take place. Must? I was glad that the sage was on my side, but that was a strangely urgent word. My father bowed his thanks, but Ram raised his chin stubbornly. There is one other matter. I have promised my brothers that we will get married at the same time and into the same family so as to avoid the conflict that occur so often among wives. A darkness passed over his face as he said this, and I wondered at its cause. Therefore, before we ask my father's permission, I must make sure that King Janak can fulfill my vow. My father looked thunderstruck. In the women's corner, my mother's face was drawn and pale. Even Vishwamitra was taken aback. Be reasonable, Ram, he barked. King Janak has a second daughter, Urmila. Let us marry her to Lakshman. Surely that will be fulfillment enough. I heard the sharp, delighted intake of Urmila's breath. But Ram shook his head, and his face was stubborn as stone. I have given my word, says, it cannot be broken for the sake of convenience. That is not the custom of the house of Raghu. His words, eerily echoing the ones I had uttered in my dream, sent a shock through me. Everyone began to speak at once, arguing, trying to find their way around this new hurdle. Their voices rattled like stones inside my head. Urmila was on the verge of tears. I thought of what the bow had taught me. I retreated to a place of silence within. My distress fell away and I was able to pray. Divine Mother, find us a way out of this mess. As though in response, words rose up within me like a fountain, though I had no idea of what I was about to say. Low but resolute, a voice, mine yet not mine, cut through the cacophony. My parents looked startled, but it was Ram I was addressing. I saw wonder in his eyes and realized that this was the first time he was hearing me speak. Your desire to avoid conflict among brothers is a good one, Prince of Ayodhya, but perhaps You should have informed us of this vow before you strung Shiva's bow. Surely you knew that once her bride price is paid, a woman can't marry anyone else. I was horrified at what I had just said. It was rude to reprimand a guest no matter what he had done. Additionally, for a woman to speak up about her own marriage in this way was considered shameless. Even if all Ram's conditions were met, would he want a wife like this? But deep inside me, someone, was it the goddess, said, it is important to speak your mind to the man you are going to marry. What kind of relationship would you have if you couldn't do that? Ram looked at me silently. Was that compunction in his eyes? Was it guilt or was it displeasure? The goddess was not done with me. More words spilled out of my mouth. Fortunately, as it happens, there are two other unmarried daughters in the house of Janak. Father, please send a messenger to my uncle King Kushadwaja. Ask him to hurry here with my cousins, Mandavi and Shrutakirti. My final words were again for Ram. Would that satisfy your vow, O Prince of the great house of Raghu? Underneath its politeness, my voice was laced with sarcasm. Ram's brows drew together in a frown. Surely he was angry now. Oh goddess, I thought, I have ruined everything with my sharp tongue. But after a moment, he bowed and said, indeed it will, princess. I thank you for finding such an excellent solution. There was a flicker in his eyes. I wanted to believe that it was glad relief, perhaps even respect. But possibly it was only surprise that a mere girl could untangle such a naughty situation. That evening, the brothers joined our family for a meal on our terrace among the sleeping flowers. We sat on cushions on the cool stone. Lamps hung from alcoves around us, swinging lightly in the breeze. Nearby, a musician plucked on the strings of her veena, and the notes rose like longing into the sky. The food was simple, as it usually was in my father's house. Rice cooked with ghee, lentils, a couple of vegetables, and a milk dessert prepared personally by my mother as a special welcome to guests who might soon become family.